caste system, but there's definitely a division, right? Where the major concentration of Latino immigrants are within the city of Brookhaven. So I mean, I don't know how that fits into that, but it's sort of like, I don't want to use the word two tails, but there are two different Brookhavens in that sense, right?
And to piggyback, go ahead, Ms. Kathy Wells.
I agree. I grew up in the Lomos Park area, talking about the history tonight. That's my argument. There is definitely a caste system in Brookhaven. I've worked with the Latino community. You talk about the golf courses on one side of Brookhaven, and you look at the highway corridor, where there's a definite difference of how people were treated in those areas. Now, our community has been gentrified. There are very few Black people that continue to live there. My parents' house is still there, but there's definitely a difference. And I'm with you, Mr. Torres. I'm not sure if it's a caste system, but I definitely will tell you that there's a point of racism in those areas. I know how they treat the people on Beaver Highway. I taught the kids on Beaver Highway. There's wonderful people in the world. And I've taught the kids at Montgomery Elementary. They come from the affluent homes. It's a very different way how the DeKalb County treats those kids, and also how they're treated in Brookhaven. You do have a task before us that is huge, and I hope we will be able to.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we could live in America and not think that there's a caste system. Brookhaven is an incredibly small plot of land in a very bigger cultural context, and in that cultural context, it has to have washed over Brookhaven, both in today and in over the many years. So the answer to the question of whether it exists, I think it's a yes. I do think her definition of caste is different. It's unique. And I heard a little bit of it, but would be interesting in hearing more. But that's just my 2 cents on whether it exists or not.
And I would add that from listening to her excerpt from Cass, there's definitely a structural problem in Brookhaven. And the structure was in place, and nobody has attempted to fix the structure of the problem. So you have North Brookhaven, Central Brookhaven, that's not, I wouldn't say welcoming, but doesn't make it a place where people from Buford Highway can move and live, because there's no affordable housing component in that area to receive any and everybody. So the structural problem that we have is there, and it has to be resolved, and we just can't keep overlooking it because it won't go away. We have to be a city that's inclusive for all in all parts of the city, so that you don't have, like they mentioned, Buford Highway with the highest population of Hispanics living there, and nowhere else in Brookhaven. So we have to look at how do we fix that structural problem.
And the other issue is that, talking about the gentrification in the other part of Brookhaven, we might see that in the Buford Highway corridor within the next 10, 15 years. And we already start seeing some of that, in some areas. And those families, where do they go when they're so important to the essential economy and to, and to everything that, that we need in terms of keeping the essential economy running, right?
Another way that you can think about or sort of see the cast in Brookhaven is think about what would happen if what happens when people try and come into or want to come into Brookhaven, and the caste system being something that keeps people out, or may push people out, like you were just saying, Hannibal. And so if you I think that part of what we have in Brookhaven is a city that has intentionally or unintentionally homogenized itself, whether that's racially or socioeconomically or different things like that, and that the cast really shows itself by the way that the city, intentionally or not, prevents people from coming in or prevents change from happening or things like that.
But I think as the city changes, I'm sorry, were you about to say something, Naglish? I don't want to. Oh, as the city changes and receive, I'm going to call them outsiders, and I'm going to use Starbucks for example. I think the city have to have that dressing on them so when someone comes to the city, they see that there's no caste and there's no special areas. If Starbucks can exist on Peachtree in front of Kroger, why can't they exist on Buford Highway near Brightler? Our Latinx friends drink coffee. So I think we have to be city that not only look at the structure and look at how we are received internally, we have to be able to translate that to people that comes to us, like the external businesses and that sort. I think that's a piece where the city could assist with helping the structural problem that we have. Does that make sense? Is that?
Mm-hmm. I really noticed in the last past week, from looking at Brookhaven in the media, one of the things that we brought to my attention, because I'm really concerned about brown and black communities being able to get the COVID vaccine. Okay, we watched our governor go to the Brookhaven Kroger, but then on the other side, on the Latino on Buford Highway, we have grocery stores on that side of Brookhaven that we have not received the vaccine. My biggest concern is the equity in it. You can look at how the governor came there, the governor of County. We have to look at what Brookhaven is representing for all of us. And when we talk about that Kroger, I'm not saying that. I know on Beaver Highway there's another Kroger. There's a Kroger that has been there for years that Hispanics and the brown and black people really frequent. All people do. But in Brookhaven, on that side on T Street, it's a different type of people. Those are the people who have memberships to the golf courses. Okay, would I be able to enjoy that golf course over that side? The standard brother of our sister be able to. There is a huge difference in Brookhaven. It's been there for years, even before they changed the name of it. Those golf courses have been there, and the only black and brown people you see there, they're working there. Mm-hmm. So there is a caste. It's this economic caste. It's the same thing in America. If you've got money, I don't care if you're black or brown, you're accepted. If you don't have money,
so I have to do my facilitator thing and just encourage and invite Lauren and William into the conversation. What's on your mind, guys? What's coming up for you as we have this conversation?
I have concern, obviously, about the disparity of different areas in the community. Part of the reason that I joined the group. I didn't jump in earlier. Also, for some reason, I bounced around to 3 groups before I landed in this one. Sort of. I heard 2 other people start the conversation before this one. Was waiting for the right opportunity to join in.
Yeah.
One thing I would say too that I've noticed I've been here long enough in Brookhaven. I've seen the change. There's definitely embedded stuff that's already been brought up. That there are latent things, like in the example of the old house. We're also very much a changing community with more people coming in that are new to the community, and that will lead to both new ideas, but oftentimes lack of knowledge or ignorance of those issues that are already existing in the community.
As for me, I was mostly just interested in listening. For this particular subject, I didn't really feel like I had much to offer as input. I guess like to hear discussion of golf courses, like those aren't the circles I run in and I see. It's like I don't see an awful lot of, to be perfectly honest, like disparity when I run to Lowe's and Zaxby's, and those are the kind of circles I run in. So, I will say though, it's like since I live right around the corner from the Starbucks and the traffic here, I am 110% of Buford Highway getting another Starbucks if it takes traffic away from that Starbucks. So, yeah, let's see that happen. It's
Yeah, you might be the initial article that we read before the last time about the curb cut, right? That equity has all kinds of benefits, right? For everyone, traffic moving, access and so forth. So that's a great example of that.
That's a good point that you mentioned that, and this is one of the externalities that benefit others. You introduce a new Starbucks, it relieves the pressure off of Lauren's experience, because you're right, it gets very congested there. So that's a great way to look at why it's important to have diversity throughout the city and location of businesses that can support all citizens in the city, not just in the main area on Peachtree.
But I think it's kind of strange to think about putting a Starbucks on Buford Highway as opposed to putting the businesses from Buford Highway onto Peachtree. It's like it's a one-way street that I don't know, that the kind of corporate outsider is what needs to go on to Buford Highway for whatever reason, but that those businesses that are there, the restaurants, the grocery stores, things like that, wouldn't be acceptable to move into other parts of Brookhaven, which I think is what we're talking about if we're talking about equity, not bringing in more Starbucks, but really centering those communities and expanding them to be more of a central part of Brookhaven as opposed to what is just crammed into Buford Highway.
But and also, to that point is, how do we get the other side of Brookhaven, the golf course side of Brookhaven, to better understand that, listen, if you're going to be for Highway, you're going to get such an experience on different, go to a grocery store or whatever, go to Brito or go whatever, and I'm sure some of them do, but the more that people go and experience that, that diversity of food or whatever it is, or maybe it's a different type of coffee, right? Maybe it's a coffee from, that starts bringing the community more together. And then when the time comes to realize, and we don't want to lose that. I love going to Brito to get my plantains or my, whatever it is that I want, right? Or my tortillas, or if I want real tacos, I love Taqueria del Sol, but if I go to La Pastorcita or whatever it is, I might get the real deal as well. So, how do we bring those two worlds together? So that, because the beauty of Brookhaven is that we have those two worlds. You don't have to go very far, and not only Latino. You can get all types of, diversity in terms of your culinary taste in Buford Highway, not just Latino. You can get Asian, Indian. There's a great Bangladeshi restaurant there in Southeast Plaza. So how do we bring those two together so that everybody can rise into, we're talking about equity and creating wealth, hey, if that golf course crowd starts going to those places, we raise the standard of living, and maybe they can afford to stay there. Because my concern is that we're going to lose the affordability. And in Brookhaven, you want to move to Brookhaven now, you want to move to the golf course side, you're going to pay a lot of money for that townhouse or that house,
I hear you, Annabelle. It's like you can make changes because something is wrong or because something is right? I can't remember that little song from one of the cartoons about accentuate the positive, right? So lean into what's so wonderful around the other, the spaces where people aren't.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, one of the great things about those big farmers market that you go in there, the diversity of food that you see there is amazing. Not just Latino. I mean, you see Russian, you see Czechoslovakian, you see Indian, you see Chinese. I mean, it's amazing. It's like they're destinations actually.
I don't even go to the Cobb County Farmers Market anymore.
Yeah.
I just go right on the highway. I mean, fresh vegetables. I mean, everything is there. You're right, and you're right, Leslie. How do you package that and market it to the full cities so that they can benefit off of it also? I used to buy the Publix rotisserie chicken. I don't do that anymore. I go to the Buford Highway at the corner of Davis and Curtis Drive and Buford Highway. They make the best chicken in the world. Leslie, we have to go.
Sweetheart.
No,
Sweetheart.
I definitely want to go.
But Sweetheart, if you've never been to the Sweetheart,
I'm writing all of this down.
It's a bakery. It's fantastic. And they have one on Breakout Highway, but they also have one at London Square. So to Chris's point, those businesses, we should not be looking to put. I agree with him totally. We should use some of those businesses that are on Breakout Highway, which is so rich and fantastic, and put them on the northwest side. I mean, and I think people would be open to it, because the world is getting smaller. We are learning to appreciate different cultures. And that's the beauty of diversity.
And this is perfect to where we actually should be. We didn't pick a reporter, so you guys be thinking about who's going to volunteer to report out. Did you nominate someone?
John?
Kathy or...
not me.
What do you...
Hey, nothing trying as you do it.
No, I talk all the time. I want to hear... I want one of you guys to.
Oh, I think you...
So our second question, though, is, and I think you've begun on it when you talk about promoting business, how do we make sure that what we come out of this process with, right, really addresses some of these divisions that we see? I mean, when you were talking about the farmers market, I was sitting here thinking, wouldn't that really be a great socially distant outing for the commission or some portion to get your delicious food on, experience one another, get folks over there on the commission who may not ever be there? I mean, how do we make sure that what we're doing and what we come up with really tries to get at some of the issues that we're talking about?
I think you're right. I think that this commission, in order for us to get a full grasp of the diversity is, and I've been fortunate because I've had the opportunity to live right there on the highway and experience the diversity. So it has been a wonderful thing with the entire place. Many people have not had that opportunity. Probably a lot of people in this commission. They probably travel the world, but to figure out what you got in your own little city, it's fantastic. We need to know what's there. There's so many wonderful places on Buford Highway, also on P Street. There's a lot of good things there. But we need to merge the two. And then I think the field trip will be great. If we give a list of really great places that if you haven't visited, you can visit and see what it's like, because it is great. It's great. So that's a part of diversity. But that's my piece. I still think John should report out.
I want to hear from... I want you all to report out. I think this would be great. People are tired of hearing from me.
Other ways, one of the, one critical body of work or responsibility for the subcommittees will be public input. So think about that related to the recommendations that the committees will be developing, right? How might we do that in a way that, again, addresses some of these divisions or caste or, all the different ways that you termed them. Does anything come to mind around that? And let me flip it too. I'm not scared of silence, but let me flip it too. We can think about how do we address caste, or we can think about how do we make Brookhaven and places more welcoming, right? What does it mean to be welcoming? What does that look like?
So one of the questions early on in this whole process was asking us what we thought how we would know that the commission had been successful or something of that sort. And one of the things that I said is that we'll know that we're successful if it makes people upset and uncomfortable. And so the idea that if we acknowledge that there's a caste system and that there's inequalities here in Brookhaven, that in order to change it, you have to push up against it. And that is likely to be met with resistance, discomfort, things like that. And so for me, I hope that the work that we do, if we want to push back against this caste structures, these ideas, is that it is really like making the people on the golf course upset or whatnot. I think that would be good for our city to be challenged in that way, to really commit to the work that we're doing here. So it's just been something that's on my mind in terms of how I think about what we're trying to do.
That's a good point. Another point is it's not necessarily so accepting that the people on the Beaver Highway probably saying, "Hey, welcome, come in." You know, I mean, like the golf course people like stay away. It's the same thing on the Beaver Highway thing. Like we love where we are, we like what we're doing. We don't need to be in here because the whole thing comes into do we trust you? And what do you want? What do you want when you come into this community? What do you want? You know, we are kind of happy where we are because there was a team of people in that Brookhaven corridor that have worked very diligently to keep those apartments for the Hispanic population. There are teams of people who have worked to keep that corridor open and to keep it away. Because when you come in, when we invite you in, there's also a problem. So it's just like the part is like, okay, they're not welcome to you. You are on the other side of the So it's an interesting dichotomy.
You know, I sit on the board of the Visitors Bureau of Brookhaven, and I'm thinking that once we get over this pandemic and we're able to, get back to normal lives, if we can really put together, we've got, sometimes you've got restaurant week, and we've got all those type of different weeks. If we can have something around that before highway, week, and just get restaurants to open up and the grocery stores to open up and just have like a big celebration, not only for Brookhaven residents, but just the community at large. It would be great just to have the Brookhaven community know about it. So whenever they want to pick something to eat or dining, it's the city. Within my own city, I can have all this type of, and then we help. Again, I go back. That's where we help grow the community. We help create wealth, equity. All those restaurants begin to have, they may start making more money and then can afford eventually to stay there, because otherwise we're going to drive them out.
Taste of Brookhaven.
Yeah, a taste of Brookhaven. A real taste of Brookhaven, because usually most of the events that we do, obviously we do it on the other side, right? Because we got the parks and everything, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
But keep in mind though, we do it on the other side, but the other side does not have as many restaurants as the Beaver Highway side.
No, I know, right.
If you're on that side, they don't have a lot of restaurants on the golf course side. It's not a whole lot of restaurants on that side. So
And I know that we've tried to bring the Beaufort Highway folks into the events that we do, on the other side. But sometimes it's hard. Maybe they don't feel like they're part of the community. They don't feel like they're part, So maybe the first step to do that is to bring the golf course crowd over here, which might be easier, So we have the Cherry Blossom Festival. We have something at Blackwood Park, which is right down the hill from me. we can get those folks to come over as well. Because I know that we've tried. I know that we've tried and we've done it when I was at the, when I was at the LAA, we did that. But, sometimes maybe they don't feel it's their city. Maybe they don't feel that, that if I cross over, it's not my city.
I was actually thinking something along the ideas of similar to a taste of Brookhaven, but maybe like a scavenger hunt, particularly something that you could do for young families and something that you could do for new people moving into the city, where you set up some kind of, let's go explore Brookhaven, not just kind of the obvious streets and locations that you might see, but some of the history. It'd be interesting if my kids learned about Linwood, if there was a half-day bicycle tour. Like, we did a bicycle tour of Atlanta, this goes back maybe 10 years, and we had such an amazing time. We learned so much about the city, all the way from the Civil War through the present day. And it stuck with us as a place like, yeah, I want to be a part of this place. This place has an incredible history. Maybe Brookhaven needs to do something similar, where we can tell the history of this place. Because when in the meeting we had the other day, when they were talking about the Native Americans and the land they own, that was very interesting to me, because it's not something I ever thought about. But once again, if you did a tour of the town, that was a particular point of interest. You could kind of do a full tour from Native Americans to African Americans to the folks that are centered in the business community to kind of the Hispanics. I think you could tell a very good story there and get people really feeling a kinship for the town.
I love that.
And the rich diversity that exists in it.
We need to somehow see if we can get Plaza Fiesta to be part of Brookhaven, take it away from Shanley.
Oh my goodness.
That's called annexation.
So I think somebody's got to win the fight about who's going to report out. But in the report out, just one way to think about it is just kind of what was the conversation, but any big ideas, right? We call them the ABCs. Ahas, big ideas, or just what kind of was the central question, crucial question that came up. So that's just one way, in these report outs to think about them. And I don't know who's up. I saw the battle going on. I don't know who won that one.
It was between Annabelle and Kathy. Those two. Who won the fight?
Annabelle.
I'm not
really good with talking to her from the crowd.
No, I'm not. I'll still be.
You talk.
with y'all.
Still
Congress.
All right, 10 minutes.
Time goes so fast.
We need 10 more minutes.
No, I know.
What she said.
Where did Kathy go? Kathy, where'd you go?
Here I am.
Oh, we voted when you were away.
During that quick beam me up, right? That's when you missed the vote.
All right, Commissioner Wells.
So I don't know. Looks like we're waiting for a few more folks to come back in. And we will, after we do our report outs, we have some time in to just open it up to the full commission around just insight and feedback. So
Everybody's back?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, as Leslie indicated, and as we discussed it at the top, we're going to ask each recorder to share the highlights of their discussion for 2 minutes. And then, fortunately, we should have some time to hear any other points that are good for the whole tonight. So I was in group 1, so I at least know who the recorder was there. And so we'll start with group 1, and that was Karen, Commissioner Sheila.
Okay. So bear with me, everybody. So
the first question, do we think Brookhaven has a racial caste system? I think we were all in unanimous agreement. It exists everywhere. Linwood Park was a great example about that.